Welcome to the show. I'm Cath Vincent, and once again I'm joined by special guests to energise and inspire you.
It's time to wake up your wow with your host, international award-winning speaker, Cath Vincent.
On the show tonight, yoga teacher Kara-Leah Grant, who is the author of the No More Excuses Guide to Yoga, explains yoga as you've never heard it before. Wall Street entrepreneur turned business coach Andrew Baird tells us how even redundancy can open up the best opportunities in your life. And personality coach Kate Mason sheds light on why opposites attract and how to deal with the tensions that arise later. And in the Wilde Records music slot, we have music from Waiheke singer-songwriter Aaron Carpenter. All this and more to wake up your wow. So Kara-Leah, thank you so much for flying in to see us.
My pleasure, Cath.
Now listen, you're a yoga instructor and you've written this fabulous book called the No More Excuses Guide to Yoga. Now I'm actually really excited about the title. I think, did she write this for me? How did you come to write the book?
Well, because I'm a yoga teacher, whenever anyone says to me, you know, what do you do? And I tell them, so many people respond, oh yeah, I've been meaning to do yoga, I've been meaning to try yoga. And after hearing this literally hundreds of times, I got to thinking, I'm like, why are all these people wanting to try yoga and not? You know, and yoga has been enormously beneficial for me in my life, and so I really wanted to write something that would just demolish all the preconceptions that stop people from going to class, and also give them that level of comfort around what to expect when they go to class, so that they would feel good about going to that first class, because it can be really intimidating. You know, and I realised that that was one of the reasons why people thought, yeah, I really want to go, but they don't take that step because they're a little bit, you know, a little bit frightened. And
I think there's a kind of, there's a sense that yoga's for kind of lean, fit women, and it's kind of doing unreasonable stretches. That's
absolutely.
Kind of what I think.
Well, if you look at the media image of yoga, it's generally, you know, young, slim women doing incredibly bendy things. And, you know, your average person looks at that and goes, you know what, I can't do that, that's not me. So what I wanted to do was to write a book that says, you know what, yoga is for anyone. You know, it does not matter how flexible you are, because flexibility is a result of doing the yoga. It's not something that you need to have beforehand. You know, and anyone can do yoga. I mean, men do yoga, women do yoga. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what kind of body shape you've got. The idea is just to come to class, and the yoga will always meet you where you are. You see, so there's always the right kind of yoga for the right kind of person. A big part of the book was helping people to understand all of the different yoga that's on offer, so that then they can go, oh, that's the kind of yoga that I need to go and do. So
what are the main excuses for not doing yoga?
I'd say the number one excuse that people have is they don't have enough time. You know, because everybody's so busy. And that's huge, you know, but it's one of those things where you make time. You know, there's always time for things you make a priority in your life. You think about how much time you spend on Facebook or on social media or watching television, all those kind of things. Instead of doing that, you know, you might choose to go to a yoga class. So it's recognising, you know, how do I make time in my life so I can actually get to class?
And actually that applies to anything that you want to spend time on.
Absolutely, anything.
Eating, you know, looking after yourself in any way. What other excuses do people come up with?
The classic one is I'm not flexible enough. You know, I'm too tight. And I mean, again, that just comes down to the fact that we only see those pictures of people doing really bendy stuff, you know. But when I first started yoga, I mean, I'd had a spinal fusion 3 or 4 years prior. So I was in really bad shape, and I had no flexibility whatsoever. I couldn't even like bend over and touch my knees, let alone touch my toes. So it's been the practice of yoga over time that has improved my flexibility. And that's what people need to realise, is that when you first go to a class, that you might not necessarily be able to do the postures. But it's not about achieving a physical ideal posture. It's about the state of presence that you bring to what you're doing. So the idea when we're doing the poses is that you're really tuning into your breath, and you're paying attention to what's going through your mind, and you're paying attention to what you're feeling in your body. You see, and that in essence, that quality of attention, that quality of presence, that is the yoga.
Well, I will confess, for the benefit of everyone else, that actually I've been in yoga classes going, oh, I'm no good at this, you know, and it's this, I guess it's a Western thing about, you know, you've got to be good at everything you do.
Yeah, totally. You know? And we go in with that idea that we need to be good at it, but when you're having that thought, oh, I'm no good at that, The actual yoga is being able to witness the thought.
Yes.
You see, so that you notice that thought and you see it and you recognise that you just let it go.
Yeah.
And you come back to your breath and you come back to the posture. And then another thought will come up, oh, look how bendy he is over there. And you let that go and you come back inside of yourself and back to your experience.
Yeah.
So in essence, you're training your mind.
Right, so in fact it's much more mental and emotional than physical.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, the postures themselves are just a tool. They're not the actual yoga.
Right.
You see, so we practice the postures so that we can learn how to be fully present in the moment. Because in this society that we live in, you know, we are constantly surrounded by distractions. We're mostly externally focused. Most people have only ever had a few experiences of total presence in their lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe when they were looking at an incredible sunset and all thought might have ceased,
yeah,
and they just get that sense of truly being at one with the world.
Yeah.
You know, that is presence. But when you go into a yoga class, you're practicing coming into that state of presence.
There's a lovely bit in the book where you say actually reading this book is a form of doing yoga. I felt so good about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's how I tried to write it.
Yeah.
So as you're reading through, I remind you to actually tune into your breathing.
Yeah.
Because the moment you become aware of your breath,
yeah,
and you notice your inhale and you notice your exhale, you're present, you see. And so you can do that while you're reading a book, so you're no longer up in your mind, you're actually down in your body.
So what are the top 3 things that you think people would take from a regular yoga practice?
Probably the most common thing, or the thing that people think about, is the physical side. Yeah. There's no doubt that if you regularly practice yoga, that it's going to improve your physicality and your health. You know, you will become more flexible, you will become stronger, and it also helps to bring all of your systems into balance. Yeah. Okay. The second thing you'll notice is your mind. You know, like most of us live on the sort of the edge of stress a lot of the time. You know, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression. If you practice yoga on a regular basis, it helps you to still your mind, you know, and it just kind of clears everything out. So again, you come to that place of presence. Yeah. And then the third thing you'll notice is what it does for your emotional state of being. Right. You see, so we all have emotions, they come through all the time. When you practice yoga, you learn how to witness your emotions, so you're still feeling them, but you're not completely identified with them. Right. They become something that comes in, you know, instead of I am angry, I am experiencing anger.
Oh, I like that distinction.
Yeah, it's a really important distinction. And then you can just allow the anger to be as it is, let it pass through you, and it doesn't take you, you know. Fantastic.
So, well, if we just take that one tip in isolation, that's going to help a lot of people. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Andrew, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Now listen, you used to work on Wall Street. That sounds terribly glamorous and exciting. Tell me about that time of your life.
Yeah, so it was super exciting. So I worked on Wall Street, just up the road from the stock exchange, and I was actually there in 2000 when the stock exchange crash happened. So it was like the dot-com boom, everything was going up, and then it all exploded out.
And so was your work quite stressful, or was it cool? It sounds like you were kind of doing stuff at the frontier of the dot-com era.
Yeah, so it was very exciting. It was all dot-com startups. There was like a hip-hop startup and all these different startups in there. And it was very, there was long hours, but New York at that point was very cool because of all the dot-com stuff that was going on. So you could order M&Ms and they would get delivered by someone on a bicycle to your door. So it was so cool.
And then what happened? So the stock exchange crashed, then what happened?
So the stock exchange crashed. It actually impacted, obviously, because I was building websites, it impacted my industry, and about 18 months later I actually lost my job.
Right. So you were made redundant, and how did that affect you?
I totally hadn't seen it coming, so it was an absolute shock, and I can remember like riding home after I was given my notice, just tears streaming down my face going, what am I going to do? Because Kim and I were about to get married. I was the breadwinner, she was at university, and I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, and so many of us, we carry on our lives in a certain direction, and then if something random happens and you need to change direction, how do you cope with that?
Well, I think the key thing is that you've got to work out where you want to go from there. And so for me, that was quite clear. Like I had that whack of, hey, I've lost my job. And I went, wow, what did I want to do with my life? Well, I wanted to start a business. And so I looked for a job a little bit, wasn't finding a job. So I went, great, I'll start a business.
So what would you say to people who want to maybe take the leap, maybe start their own business, or maybe change job direction, something like that, and are a bit nervous about doing it?
I think the key thing for me is that you've got to work out where your passions lie, because any road that you go down, there'll be, you know, setbacks and pitfalls and those sorts of things. And so if it's something that you're passionate about, then it's much, much easier to, you know, to keep going when you do get those kind of knocks where you're like, oh, this isn't working. But if you love it and you're passionate about it, then it's much easier to keep going.
Yeah. Now, you coach people in business mindset now. How does that work?
Well, it came from me originally. So when I first started working with my mentor, I was all like, oh, direct response marketing and copywriting and sales and all that sort of stuff.
That's that passion you were talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, yeah, all excited about it. And but what happened was we sort of got a bit further, like improved a few things in the business, but I sort of went, I'm still not really getting to where I want to go.
Yeah. And
I realised that it was actually my thinking that was limiting me. So although I had the right strategies, I didn't have the right mindset to actually be able to use them.
And how can you change that though? Aren't we all creatures of habit and we think the same thoughts time and again?
Well, we are creatures of habit, but the more you change those habits, the easier it becomes to change it. So for me, I can remember when I first started, like I was in like a little rented flat, sitting in the little bedroom, typing away on a card table and just actually talking to myself, going, come on, you can do this, what are you doing, come on.
Yeah, crack that whip, yeah.
Yeah, like basically trying to convince myself to do it.
Right.
And most people are like that, they're not used to changing. But the more I have changed, the more I can say, go and hear someone like you speak, and the next day, or even the same day, things will change for me.
Why, thank you. Well, so many people tell me that they procrastinate. And I guess that's the dialogue that goes on in their head. You know, but you must do it. I can't do it. You must. So how can you compensate for that procrastination?
Yeah, I was a huge, massive procrastinator. And I think the key thing is that when you're procrastinating, generally speaking, there's two values that are in conflict with each other, or at least two. So basically, you've got one value that says, well, yes, I should market and sell my business, I need to grow my business. But you've got another value, you know, much of society sort of tries to avoid marketing and avoid sales, and they're like, oh, get those salespeople and that marketing out of my way. Yeah. And so those two values, if they coexist, you're likely to procrastinate, and your marketing will get done at 3 o'clock on a Friday for a 4 o'clock deadline.
Yes.
Because you've got that thing that says, oh, well, I don't really like marketing, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who, I suppose most people, they go along until they get made redundant. Something else forces them to make a choice. But what would you say to somebody who wants to make a choice and is frightened to take the leap?
I think the first thing is that no matter what you do, when you change, you're going out of your comfort zone, you're going to feel scared and afraid. Like, we just have to accept that. But it's like anything new. It's like becoming a parent. Like when you first start, it's like, oh my goodness, who put me in charge of this tiny little thing? Yeah. But you learn and you adapt and you work out how to do it. And there's plenty of support out there as well to help you.
And you don't just not do it because it's scary. Exactly.
Exactly. You still take action. So I guess the first thing is you want to get that support around you. So whether that's a mentor like me or joining business networking groups, they're great as well to get other business owners around you to build up your confidence and go, okay, cool, I can do this. Equally, one of the big things I've seen is the people who are usually successful at making that change from one thing to another. There's two approaches that I've seen that work really well. One is just the boots and all, they just throw themselves in the deep end. So they just go, I'm going to start a TV show, bam, I'll just throw myself in there. What could go wrong?
I don't know who you're talking
about. Yeah. So that's one approach, is the boots and all approach. Yeah. And then the other approach is a very measured approach of, right, say I'm in a corporate role, maybe I'm a project manager at Microsoft, and I want to, I want to quit my job, I want to start a startup. Like I'm in the tech space, I want to start my own startup. And what you do is you just go, great, well, how long do I want to be able to last when I quit my job? Maybe it's 12 months, maybe it's 18 months. And then you start saving up the money so that basically when you quit, you've got that buffer to go, hey, I can keep doing this for 12 months or 18 months, get some mass and momentum going, and I don't have to be like, oh my goodness, where's my next dollar coming from? Yeah.
Okay, and one last word of advice?
So the one last word of advice would be make good choices. So I think so often we get on autopilot. When you're driving your car, and you forget where you're going, and you go, oh my goodness, how did I end up here? That happens in life as well. So it's about making conscious choices.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Awesome, thank you.
Kate, welcome. I'm super excited you're here.
Thank you, Kath. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you're joining us from South Australia.
Certainly am.
So tell me, you're a personality coach.
Right.
Now the key question I have for you is personality nature or nurture?
It's nature, Kath. But as we go through life, the various things can alter it slightly. It can be our relationships, it can be where we're brought up, it can be all kinds of influences that happen throughout our life. So it doesn't ever actually totally change it, but it can influence your personality.
So you're kind of stuck with your basic personality profile, but other things will influence it over time. Right,
That's right.
Okay. And actually, is it true that opposites attract?
It is. It is, unfortunately, because what happens is that when we meet somebody, often if they're opposite to us, they fill a gap. Yeah. So it feels really good.
Yeah.
But often those opposites also mean that after a period of time, you actually don't want that gap filled. What actually happens is that it really annoys you because you actually want that person to be like you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So give me an example of that.
All right, for example, my husband and I met. He was an introvert, I'm an extrovert. So introverts get their energy from inner world of thoughts and quiet times, and extroverts get theirs from people and the outer world. So initially a wonderful combination until I wanted to go out all the time and he'd like to stay home. Not so good, not so good. But this is where it's really valuable to know and understand yourself. Once you do, I change my pattern. I go out with my girlfriends, my husband gets his time alone.
Right. And what would you say if, for example, you're an extrovert and you happen to be married to an extrovert and you've got two extroverts in the house?
I say good luck. Because really, there's so much of the floor that each extrovert needs to take.
Yeah.
And when they're both centre stage, it's a really, really tricky technique.
Yes, it is.
So therefore, understanding that you're both extroverts, you have to allow each other to pop up on that stage and be the show pony.
The show pony, love it. Well, we'll talk about that one afterwards. And so the other question I have is, what role does personality play in success? Is it certain personality types that are more likely to be successful?
Right. Well, in personality types, there are people who love detail and they like the here and now and they use their senses. And there are people who are big picture people who see a really big picture, they love theories and ideas. Now, the big picture people are often the people that we see to think are entrepreneurial and make success and build success. However, the small detailed people can be as successful as the bigger picture people, but they tend to like repetition. They tend to enjoy a pattern of behaviour.
Right.
Now, both of those people need the other person.
Yeah.
They're actually a great marriage if they can make it, because the big picture people need the smaller picture people to give them the detail to make their big picture success.
Yeah. So a big picture person would be, who do we know?
Oh, Richard Branson's just the inevitable big picture person that everybody knows and understands, who has all these wonderful, wonderful ideas, crazy sometimes. Yeah. But to make those ideas work, he needs people who have detail.
Right, okay. And so now you actually, with your husband, have developed an entire string of swim schools across South Australia.
Yes.
So are you big picture person or are you detail person?
No, we actually tend to be a detail person. So what we actually have is a system and a structure. And so we go on building on the system and the structure that we currently have. So therefore there's no reason that a detailed person cannot be a successful person in business.
Right, so big picture people have lots of different ideas. And then the detail people have one idea and replicate it.
They can do so, yes.
Interesting. So if you knew which one you were, you'd know which way to run your business.
You would. And then you'd know who to seek if you need to take your business further or to develop it further.
Fantastic. And what kinds of problems do you experience in personalities clashing, say, in communications at work, that kind of thing?
Well, it depends on how you make decisions in your life. Now, some people make their decisions using their thinking and some make their decisions using their feelings. Now, we can all think and feel, so don't get me wrong on that.
Yeah.
However, for example, my husband and I went to visit a manager of ours who was in hospital, haemophiliac, lost half his body's blood in the ICU.
Gosh.
So we walk in and the first thing my husband says is, "When will you be back at work?" And I say, "How are you going?" So just two examples of different brains. So he's thinking, I need to know so I can get someone in to replace you.
Right.
I'm thinking, how are you? I'm worried about you.
Right.
However, it doesn't mean he's not worried.
Yeah.
But his first and foremost thought is a thinking thought.
How interesting. You see that sometimes in emails.
You do.
In the style of emails that people
absolutely.
send.
My husband's emails to his staff are, "Jack, do this by tomorrow, Paul." And when we had a staff discussion about this, the feeling people on the staff, the people who use values and people for their feelings, said, "Couldn't you just put in dear or how was your day or thank you so much?" And He does, but that's usually with a knife in his back from me and making sure that that takes place.
My emails are always, hi, how you going?
Yes,
Chat.
But for a thinker, your emails are a little bit over the top.
Oh, are they?
They are. And to tell the truth, they get those and they go, oh, really?
Who's got the time to read all that?
Absolutely. Just straight to the point. So very different fields of thought.
How interesting, because if I get a one-word email, I'm like, huh.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you recognise. So my husband recognises the feeling. People in our organisation sends an email that will be appropriate for them.
Right. So basically, when you start to understand this stuff, you can adjust your style and appreciate another person's style.
Absolutely.
And in what other ways does that show up?
Well, it shows up in the way that we organise our lives and the structure that we like in our lives. Now, some people love a really well-structured life.
Yes, I do.
Yes. And those people love lists. They have lists in their heads. They have lists on their desk. They write a list every day, and they love that list, and they follow it through. I have a girlfriend who writes a list and adds to it just so she can tick off the extra things that she's done in a day.
I don't do that.
Okay, well, and they are out there. Now, the other side of the coin is someone like myself, and we're flexible. So we like to gather lots and lots of information, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to make a decision, but if it doesn't need to be made that day, then it can wait until tomorrow. Is it really that important?
Oh, I like that.
Do we have to make that decision today? Now, the other people who are the structured decision makers don't see it as such. They get quite stressed by those people. These people find those people a wee bit anxious and
so
uptight.
Actually, are the let's call it flexible, sounds like a euphemism to me.
It does, and a bit like yoga.
So are those flexible people, are they the kind of people who are late, who lose their keys, who
and there's nothing wrong with that, let me tell you. That is just a natural thing. Yes, unfortunately, we do misplace things at times. We don't have a really ordered head around things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're either, when we're talking about procrastination, a lot of people who are ordered say, oh, they procrastinate all the time, those people. Not true. Those people can put off things because they're not necessarily needed to be done that day. The other people that can't often get very stressed about that. Now, procrastination really, as we were saying earlier, relates back to how people's values are and whether someone can procrastinate if they're a feeling person because they don't want to hurt someone else's feelings. Someone can procrastinate if they're a person that uses their thinking because things might not be right for them to critique and use logically and get their thought processes through.
So it's not a certain, because people often say, oh, I'm just the type of person that procrastinates. It's not a personality type.
No, I don't believe so, because I just believe it's understanding yourself. And if you are a person like myself, then I understand that I might not always be on time. So I make sure that for people who are structured, I'm there on time, all the time. I ensure that that happens. My other friends that aren't, 5 minutes late, doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah, got you. So what would your advice be for perhaps people who are kind of, you know, they've got people they work with or their husband, for example, or wife or partner, they're kind of clashing a little bit. What's your advice?
All right, my advice is find out as much as you can about yourself. Find out as much as you can about other people. There are loads of courses around about personalities and who are we with all the time? People. So find all of that stuff out and then apply it.
Right, about yourself. Why do I want to find out about myself when it's him?
That's right, absolutely. So in finding out about yourself, then that way it really gives you power because you're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and go, actually, maybe I'm not right all the time, although I don't think most people believe that. I think we all think that we're right. But you can actually give yourself power, put yourself in their shoes and see situations from someone else's point of view.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for coming in,
pleasure.
Kate.
Thank you.
Jesse, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Nice to be here.
I'm guessing you're, now what did Kate call the extrovert? A show pony?
I prefer a show stallion myself.
Brilliant. And who's in the studio today?
Today we have one of my very good friends, Aaron Carpenter.
Now you guys have known each other since boyhood, haven't you?
It's true, we met at school, Maclean's College.
So you know all his secrets.
I do.
And you're recording his new album at Wilde Records?
Yes, we are. And I'm also going to be doing some recording right here in the TV studio.
Live.
Yep, so I'm off to do that now.
Get to it.
Thanks.
Well, I'm a stranger. Well, I'm a stranger in this house. There's no pictures of you and me hanging on these walls. And I'm guilty for being a fool. Takes no genius is to see that I disappointed you all. And I'm sorry you think my life is such a wreck. You'd be glad to know that this house is cold and full of regret. And I'm guilty, I guess, for just being me. And I'll hold my hands out in front of you, girl. You can throw away the key. And the car I drive, well, it's baby blue. And the gas gauge don't work too good. The warrant ain't all that new, but it's a good car. Most of the time, which kinda like me, you know, prefers the journey more than the arrival time. And in my next life, I'll probably come back as myself, with a can of gasoline and a map of all the bridges in your town. Well, if I could change, girl, do you really think that I would? 'Cause it takes a whole lot of practice to feel this misunderstood. 'Cause I'm a stranger in this house. There's no pictures of you and me hanging on these walls. And I'm guilty for being a fool. Now hold my hands out in front of you, girl. Throw away the key.
Thank you so much. Take a seat. You race around.
Yep.
Catch your breath. I love that song, but it's so incredibly sad.
Yeah, I guess it is a bit sad, isn't it?
Everybody said to me with this show, are you going to just have upbeat music? And I'm like, no. Yeah, we're going to have the sad songs too. Mm. How did that song come about?
Oh, it was just the end of a relationship song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. And I wanted to write a song about my car as well, so. Yeah. Kind of, I had an old Holden, so I wanted to write about that too.
And I love that next time you're going to come back as yourself.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
So listen, tell me about the new album that you're working on.
Well, I've got 11 songs, so I thought I might record them and do a bit of work in Jesse's studio there and record. I live on Waiheke, so I'll probably record some of them there as well. In an old 100-year-old barn that I have a workshap in.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Be interesting acoustics there.
It is, yeah, really cool acoustics.
And this is a solo album?
It is a solo album, yep. Like I've said, I've recorded lots of songs with other bands and helped write those songs, but I just thought at my age I better get my ass into gear and get a solo album.
I think it's long overdue, Aaron's solo album. We met in Maclean's College as students.
So you were in a band together originally?
Yeah, we formed a band in the early 90s called Acoustic Attitude. Yeah. We've always liked each other's music styles, and we did a bit of recording in that band, and I've been sort of nagging this guy to make a record for quite a while, so I'm glad he's done it.
Fantastic. Well, we're really looking forward to that new album. Thanks so much for coming in.
Welcome, thanks for having me.
My thanks to all my special guests this week, to Andrew, to Kara-Leah, to Kate, to Jesse Wilde, and to Aaron. And until next week, don't wait to wake up your wow.